Yeah, but, got to keep going. Got to keep doing this. All right, I've got to go. Got to go to drinks. See ya. Bye. Hello, everyone. Settled in for a little session. Polly certainly is. She was barking a second ago, so carrying on like a pork chop. Ah, Sam, hi. Kid free. There you see, coming out of lockdown has its advantages. Cotty, that sounds delicious. And so does Shell's description of pizza. Very good, very good. How is everyone? How are our friends in New South Wales and Queensland going? I'm interested to know if we've got some return visitors who've been away. Rob and Deb, g'day. How you going? We've had, I've had a few Melbourne people who've said to me, "Oh, look, we probably won't be there because we're going to the theatre, or we're doing this, or we're doing that." Hello, Karen. Is it Peter or Peter, Karen? Hello, lockdown and raining. That's miserable. Hello, Jeff. Sorry, my ring's just decided to shed a shard of glass on me, so I think I might just take that off before I stab myself. Hello, Ryan. How you going? Lockdown Sydney. Yeah. Sorry to hear it, guys. It's not lots of fun. Hello, Karen. I thought it was you. I just got confused with the, whatever. Anyway, Karen, good to see you. Emily and Kevin, hello, hello. Jeff is here. Craig, I know. Well, it's a bit miserable, but at least hopefully you'll get it all sorted out in a couple of weeks and we'll be set free again after that. It's very frustrating. I keep wanting to come and visit Sydney and other places in Australia, let alone the world, and it just doesn't seem to happen. And the other thing that I think is really weird, and I'm not going to go on about this, so we'll have a drink and please get some wine in your glasses. The other thing, though, that is freaking me out at the moment is all my contacts and friends in America who are like, "Oh, here I am in Spain again," and they're all going on their summer holidays to Europe. It's like, okay, well, we'll just stay here for a bit longer. Polly loves it. Lots of za'atar. Yum. Delicious. You grew it. I thought za'atar was like a spice mix. Am I wrong? I'll have to look it up afterwards. Sounds good anyway. Yes, Polly loves lockdown. She says that she's very happy for everyone to stay home. That's right, Craig. No interruptions, full cellar. You've probably got some nice food in, and we're still allowed to go and buy food, so it's not all terrible. How lovely. Zach and Jack and Hannah in Rye. How you going? Enjoying the beach. That's the other thing, that lots of people from down here, friends of mine who went, yay, school holidays, and jumped on a plane and went to the Northern Territory and went to Queensland and went to New South Wales. It's made a little bit more difficult there as well. Oh, lamb koftas and naan bread. That sounds delicious. Should we have some wine? Before we continue our chats, you guys keep chatting amongst yourselves, but let me present the 2019 Magic Stalk Shiraz. So last time we tried this last year, it had the handwritten label, which has evolved into this. With all the stuff, a herb and a spice. Okay. Thank you, Cotty. Explains my confusion. So, yes, we had this. I looked it up, and it was sort of late August, early September that we had this. So almost a year ago. I thought it would probably be good to put it in a decanter. So that's what I'm going to do. One of these days, I'm sure I'm going to end up pouring this all into my computer, but not tonight. In the decanter it goes. Jill's a bit cranky because she's not a big fan of Shiraz, so she won't be having any. She's just come in to check that Polly's behaving herself. She's calmed down now, Jill. She's being a good girl. Yeah. In the decanter, nicely aerated. Hello, Alison and Andrew. Ready to go with cheese? Well, get stuck in. Decanter. Got my glass, got my little Magnum glass. Yeah, absolutely, Craig. So it's a year older than the one that we had a few weeks ago. And I thought, I nearly I nearly suggested that we looked at them next to each other, but I think that this format where we just have one bottle of wine together in a 40-minute session, or however long it ends up taking us, I thought would be a really nice way to just kind of. We seem to spend a lot of time musing on one wine, which I think is really nice. But, if you ever want me to shake it up and change things around, you know where to send your suggestions. I'm just saying. And we'll talk about that with the next box a little bit later. Hello, Beck and Ange and Simon. Welcome. Ange said she was going to pack her bottle of Magic Stalks to take up to dinner plane. Must be gorgeous up there. Oh, yeah, it is much more mature. I haven't tasted this wine, I don't think, since we looked at it together last year, because we only made 24 dozen or something ridiculous like that. And so it's not a wine that we open up and drink all the time, because we want to make sure that most of it goes out to you guys. And just interested to see how this wine's aged, because Jeremy and I both thought that this would be more of a sort of a short to medium term wine. Jeremy's on holiday as well. So, Jeremy, I hope you're enjoying your holiday. He may actually, I think he's coming back to pick up his little, hello, best neighbours. Hello, Jeff and Sue. Lovely to see you. Cheers. So Jeremy, it's really interesting because I think Jeremy likes the 2020 even better than the 19. I don't know when he looked at this wine last, but I think it's changed enormously, and I think it smells gorgeous. It's lost those candy notes, absolutely, Craig, and it's just sort of developing that nice kind of herbal sort of plum fruit. There's some earthy notes coming through, a little bit of meatiness that I think that's why I was suggesting sort of lamb, or maybe a bit of meat on your pizza, or something that can cope with some meaty notes. Yum. We've got vinegar flies here at the moment. It's weird because it's cold outside. It's warm inside because we've been heating it up. So all the flies come inside and go, oh, this is a nice place to live. And the wasps. Has anyone else had wasps? We've had wasps turning up. I'm like, where have you come from? You're supposed to be asleep right now, or in an egg or something. Anyway, straight out of the bottle. Absolutely, Shell. I don't think it did need to be decanted. It's still really fresh and crunchy and not too heavy on the palate. It's still got that lovely fruit brightness to it as well. Yeah, I don't know, Emily. I don't know where they're coming from, but they're supposed to be asleep in winter, so it's a bit perplexing. But when the sun comes out, it's actually quite warm. So maybe they're just hatching out of their burrows because the sun's been shining on them, and then they kind of go, whoa, it's not summer. Who did that? And then they try and come inside because it's nicer inside. Anyway, and they're big. They're like this. They're this big. They're enormous. Polly doesn't like them. Polly had a freak out actually the other night. So this week I'm going to be a bit. I'll try and pull myself together. I promise. But this week I've had a whole heap of early morning and late night Zooms with other parts of the world. So I had to get up at 5 o'clock yesterday morning to do one Zoom, and then there was another one at 9 o'clock. And I got my first Pfizer jab yesterday, so I've got a little bruise on my arm, but I'm feeling fine apart from that. Maybe a little, I think my eyes look a bit slitty, but anyway, I should have put some more makeup on. But no, feeling fine, happy with that. But then I had to do another Zoom call last night at 9:30, and then I had to get up again at 6 o'clock this morning to do another Zoom call. So I'm not quite sure why they're all happening this week, but they are, and I'm over it. I'm sure there are lots. I was talking to another friend who's he's just sold his company to someone in America, I think, or Europe. Anyway, because he's handed over the company, but he's still working. He has to work in their time zone. So he's been doing meetings from 3 a.m. to I don't know, 1 p.m. and then trying to live a normal life as well. It doesn't sound very fun. part of the fun of all this digital life, I guess. There's lots of advantages, but some disadvantages as well. Anyway, back to the wine. Correct, Craig. I should be talking about this wine, not talking about doing business. We've put that away, haven't we? It's past 6 o'clock. We've finished all our work. We've put it away. We're drinking wine now. Eating food, drinking wine. I've got to say as well, Pete's been doing some more work on the Drinks with Kate merch. It's not quite ready to release, but as soon as it is, he's just getting a few pricings and colour things, and there might be possibly something else happening as well, which I can't talk about right now because it's all top secret. But as soon as we're ready to reveal, we will send you guys an email with a link to all of the options, sizes, colours, prices, and you can, tick what you want and order it, and then we'll get it all ordered and it'll all be fabulous. So very excited, very happy with people's responses to the design last week. I think we had almost 100% support on the design, and we thought for anyone who finds it a bit too radical, we might just do a very Moorooduc kind of like our Wild G's t-shirts, but just maybe drinks with Kate, something like that, a bit more modest. Anyway, Peter McIntyre, indeed, he's really surpassed himself. I'd love to show it to you, but he said I wasn't allowed to tonight. He's still working on it, so watch this space, as they say. Right, wine. I do think it's opening up really nicely. Oh, hello, Michael. How are you going? Oh, no. Oh, gosh. Darling lockdown. Oh, what a pain. Well, the canapes, fantastic. I hope you've got good air conditioning as well. Yeah, it's mucked up a lot of people's trips, I think, this latest lockdown. And, if you know anyone who's in quarantine or lockdown or anything who needs us to send them some wine, point them in our direction, because we do feel that we do a little bit of a service for people who are sitting around being a bit bored. This is, slow drinking, thoughtful tasting rather than sort of guzzling too much alcohol in one go. But I think that, if you've got anyone who needs a bit of cheering up, then not a bad way to do it. Rob and Deb. Oh, Rob, I love your WSET form. You've taken it all very, very seriously. Craig, it's interesting. Now I'm going to tell tales on my WSET students, but I thought that was fantastic, Rob. Rob has actually made a printout of the systematic approach to tasting. Sorry, everybody else who's not doing WSET. I'll get off that in a minute. And so he's got this fabulous form that he can do. But, if you do level 3, you need to learn it all off by heart. So maybe writing it out every time is a better way to learn it. Anyway, whatever. Good form. Keeps you thinking about everything. It's got lots of black fruit aromas. Absolutely, Rob and Deb. A little bit of bitterness as well on the aftertaste. It's that sort of bitter herbal characters coming up really nicely, which I think, again, is going to make it great with meaty flavours and sort of slightly fatty flavours. So whether you've got a nice tangy cheese, like a good aged vintage cheddar or something like that, or whether you've got some nice slow-cooked lamb or your lamb koftas or your pizza or whatever, I think that, right, excellent, very good. Oh, excellent. So, yeah, lockdown is a great blessing for your study habits. You'll have to do that. Now, the dogs are all going to start barking because Oscar's started a thing, but Polly's being a very good girl and going into the other room to bark. So I'm very, very proud of her, although she can't get... Try again, Polly. You can do the door. You know how to do the door. She'll be all right. As it's opening up, though, it's getting this sort of, did anyone this is a kid's memory for me, and this was something that we always used to have at Christmas, was Callard and Bowser Nougat. It's an English brand. It's a really kind of, Craig, that's fantastic. Good work. Have you got a little story that you tell so that you remember all the words, like a little mnemonic thing, or you've just remembered it? I think that's ace. What, Alison? What? No. Callard and Bowser Nougat? Is that what you're saying no to? So They did, so yes, they stopped making it, but it's this childhood memory of mine because the cherries that were in it had this really sort of cherry, yes, in a pale blue box, absolutely, and they were soft and they had lots of honey. It's in here, Richard. Richard's come looking for some. There you go. Yes, good, excellent. I understand. Hi, Kate. And Sarah, how are you going? Good to see you. It is mushroomy and fruity. So, yeah, so with the rice paper that you had to eat the rice paper, and as a kid I used to love trying to peel the rice paper off and eating it separately from the nougat, which is kind of not the point of it. Anyway, it has this kind of this beautiful lifted honey, toasted almond, but kind of almost candied cherry character that I'm getting a little bit on the nose here. That cherry fruit, that plummy character, almost like a macerated plum character as well, is coming up. So a little bit of that candy character, but in a more sort of grown-up fashion than the 2020 was looking a few weeks ago, and then this one was looking last year. But as you say, Kate, it's got this kind of savoury, mushroomy note to it as well, which is really appealing. And as I was saying before, sort of bitter herbs, like almost like rocket or a little bit of what's it called? What's that bitter dark green herb? Italian sort of. It's almost like a wild herb that they use instead of spinach. Anyway, the stalks. That's where the stalks are coming through. That sort of bitter herbal character. The structure is really lovely, but then the red fruit on the palate is so bright and fresh. It's really quite different, and that candied, that sort of glacé candied cherry from the Calais and Bowser nougat is coming through more on the palate for me. It doesn't make the wine sweet. It just gives it a sweet fruitedness that's really an interesting juxtaposition with chicory. Thank you, Daryl and Sue. That's it. Chicory, radicchio as well, but chicory was what I was thinking of. There's that little kind of chicory, radicchio kind of flavour to it, and you can almost imagine sort of getting some chicory or some radicchio and sort of dousing it with fruity olive oil. There's a sort of fruity olive oil kind of a character to this wine as well, which is again why I thought it might go well with pizza. It's sort of a bit of an Italian tasting wine, even though it's not an Italian grape variety, and of course it's not made in Italy. It's not made by Italians, but there's that sort of red juicy fruit and that savoury, cherry starburst, absolutely, Shell. And that's what I think is so fascinating with this wine, that on one hand, it's got this kind of, childhood kind of cherry plum lolly kind of a character to it. It also reminds me a little bit of Japanese salted plums, which are sort of, they smell sweet and they taste really kind of really salty and sour. Like that starburst thing, that it's got the sweet fruit, but the real kind of sour tanginess to it on the finish. So a really interesting wine, and I think, it's not going to fall over anytime soon. Alison, you just prompted. I was just getting there. It's like you read my mind. I don't think it's going to fall over anytime soon. I didn't think that I really wasn't sure if it would be looking better or not as good compared to when we looked at it last time. I think it looks better, and I think it looks significantly more sort of together and more interesting to me now than it did 8-10 months ago. So I think that's pretty cool. Spicy venison salami. Oh, Robin Deb, that's your little go-to special, isn't it? The spicy venison salami sounds delicious. No, Craig, this wine, well, yes and no. This one didn't see any new oak, but it did spend time in an old oak barrel just breathing and developing and maturing for about 8 months before we bottled it off. So there shouldn't be any oak flavour in there, because the oak was very old, not new, not 1 or 2 year old, old oak that just lets that wine kind of expand and contract a little bit over the 8 months, and a little bit of oxygen ingress, but not too much, just to let. I think that one of the lovely things that old oak does for maturing wine is that, particularly red wine, is that it just allows those tannins to polymerize, which means they kind of, the shorter tannins stick together, and once they get too big, they fall out of the solution. So you lose some of the tannin, and the remaining tannins seem sort of smoother and rounder as a result, which is kind of a bit weird, but yeah, absolutely. Michael, the peacock is asleep outside that door there. He's up on the wall. So where my hand is now, he's up there. There's a wall just behind that door, and he sleeps there. When the days start getting longer and it's light when we start, you will see him in that time where it's light where we start and it starts to go dark. You'll see him come round and he'll jump up onto the wall, probably in a couple of months' time. So little Reggie, he's fine. He hates winter. He's an Indian bird. Where he comes from, they don't have these cold weather, but he's getting by all right. He's doing all right. He's starting to grow his tail out as well, which is starting to look rather lovely. It's not long yet, but beautiful colours coming through, and you can just see the hint of the tail happening. No, Craig, no peahens for him. He's too stupid, and we don't want to have to deal with baby peacocks because apparently he's stupid. The peahens are stupider, and the babies are even stupider. We've got lots of foxes here, so we would just see, carnage of baby peacocks, and that would be far too distressing for us to deal with. They won't let you lock them up, and they won't. When they're young, they don't roost properly, so not a great idea. Anyway, let's get back to the wine. Kirsty and Keely, glad you're here. Glad you're loving it. Yay. So Rob and Deb would like me to talk again about the winemaking method, which I think is quite cool and definitely worth repeating because not everyone was here last time, and it's quite an interesting way of making wine. So this is Jeremy's little experimental wine. Jeremy is our other winemaker. For those of you who haven't met him yet, he'll pop in every now and again. He's quite busy and important and has a family that need him at 6 o'clock. So we don't see him every week, but when I ask him very nicely and we've got something really important to talk about, he'll pop in and say hello. So you will meet Jeremy down the track again. So this wine, the fruit comes from Osborne Vineyard, which is a vineyard that we've been working with since it was planted in, I think, was it the late 80s or the early 90s, Dad, the Osborne Vineyard? Late 80s. Frank and Pam Osborne established the vineyard, and we made wine for them under the Osborne label while Frank was alive, and he died of cancer a while ago. And the rest of the family kind of wanted to keep the property but weren't interested in making wine, which is understandable. And we knew that vineyard and we loved the fruit. So we made a deal with them to lease their vineyard. Now, the Shiraz fruit from that vineyard was always intended, the Shiraz vines, it was always expected that we were going to graft those over to Pinot Noir, but one thing and another happened and there were priorities in life, and the Shiraz didn't all get grafted over. And a couple of years ago, Dad and Jeremy were looking at this Shiraz that they hadn't really pruned properly for a few years and hadn't grafted over to Pinot Noir either. And they kind of went, well, are we going to have time to graft this year? And I think they decided that they weren't, but they did have time to get the vines pruned so they could get a crop off it. And Jeremy said, well, I'd quite like to have a play around with carbonic maceration. And this is where we come to the bags and the added CO2. So that fruit was then picked, and it's the reason why we only make a barrel a year. It's only a tiny little plot of vines, and we don't really have much scope to make more, but we do have the scope to continue making this, and we think it's quite a fun wine. So this is the first one that we made, this 2019. The second... The second one was the 2020 that we had I think it was 5 weeks ago. And we made it again in 2021. So you pick the fruit, hand pick the fruit. It's on the bunches. It's beautiful quality fruit, no disease, no rot, no squishing. And we put those bunches very carefully so they don't get broken into a giant plastic bag, which is sort of a half-ton volume plastic bag. Maybe it's a ton volume. Anyway, it fits in one of our fruit bins, which hold about half a ton of fruit. And so we put it in the plastic bag in the fruit bin, and we pump some CO2 over the top of it. So we get rid of all of the oxygen in the bag. And once we've got that bag full of grapes on their stalks and carbon dioxide, hello, James and Margaret, how are you going? Nice to see you. I've been wondering if you were joining us, Margaret. It's good to see you back. Cheers. Yeah, so I'll answer that in a minute, Craig. It's a good question. Lots of carbon dioxide in the bag, get rid of all the oxygen, seal it up to keep the CO2 in, keep the oxygen out. And we still aren't squashing the grapes at all. We're wanting to keep those grapes whole on the bunches so that there's no juice coming out and there's no yeast getting into the juice. So you've got these whole berries on the bunch intact, and what happens then is that you have a phenomenon which is called carbonic maceration, which means that in the absence of oxygen, the grapes start to break down from inside, and they start to basically consume their own sugar and create a little bit of alcohol. And it gives the wine a specific flavour. We talked about this last time. It's that kind of lolly shop flavour, and that it's developed in this wine into that Caledon Bowser Nougat character, the Starburst character, the bubblegummy character that you often see in a wine that's very famously made using carbonic maceration, which is Beaujolais. And basic Beaujolais, Beaujolais Nouveau, Beaujolais Village. And once that has started happening, it's not going to ferment all the sugar to alcohol. It only converts a little bit of the sugar to a little bit of alcohol. And eventually, the way we make it anyway, eventually we want to start breaking the grapes down and let some oxygen and some yeast in to start fermenting normally. So after a few days of that, the bag being all sealed up with carbon dioxide, we walked around on it, we opened it up and kind of squished it a bit, and then it started fermenting properly. And then, so this is where the name Magic Stalks comes from. So the Magic Stalks kept the berries whole while we wanted to do carbonic maceration. And then when we started to smush the grapes up and let the juice out, then during that primary alcoholic fermentation that started to happen, the stalks are still in the mix and they're acting like a tea bag, and they're giving the wine more tannin, they're giving the wine different flavors, giving those sort of mushroomy, bitter herb, sort of savory characters that make the wine so interesting. And we didn't want too much of that character in there, so we actually de-stemmed the fruit halfway through fermentation, which is completely bonkers and not traditional at all. But there've been a few people playing around with it. We didn't invent the technique of de-stemming partway through, but there's been quite a few people playing around with it down here on the Mornington Peninsula and also in the Yarra Valley, just to sort of see what would happen. And this happened. And I think this is a great result because we don't have too much stalk making the wine too tannic or too heavy. The fruit still is there and bright and gorgeous, and those carbonic maceration kind of bubblegummy, starbursty, cherry, lolly characters also are part of the mix, but not overwhelming. Nothing overwhelms anything else, which is really cool. So Craig asked in his wine course that he's doing at the moment, it is stated that carbonic maceration is used for lower quality wines. And what they mean by that is that it's a method of winemaking that injects a lot of complexity and intensity and layers of flavour into a wine that is made to drink young. So it brings on complexity quicker. And so usually it's used for wines that are made to drink early. And usually in the old world, in France and Italy particularly, and Spain as well, a wine that you want to drink early is not seen as being as high quality as a wine that will age for decades. So I think I agree with you, Craig. It's just a different style. And the modern palate, and particularly younger people, are looking more for wine, in this country particularly, but all over the world. People are less and less able to sell a wine. They don't have houses with cellars. It's expensive to buy cellar space in a cellaring company. It's expensive, and people don't have the patience for it. And so wine needs to be ready to drink as soon as it's released. And that's been a huge challenge for a lot of really classic old world, famous wines like, Premier Cru, Burgundy, and first growth to fifth growth Bordeaux. All of those wines need lots of time to really express themselves at their best. And they're also incredibly expensive. So it's that kind of long-term aging wines that maybe don't look great when they're young, that are very expensive and very famous. So that's kind of seen as being the pinnacle of wine. And this sort of wine that's just delicious and gluggable and easy to drink is seen as being perhaps lesser quality. But then there's also different levels of early drinking wine styles. Like you can buy a $10 bottle of wine from one of the big wine companies, from one of the big wine stores, and it'll be probably quite fine to drink and made to drink as soon as you buy it and open it, because let's be honest, there aren't many $10 wines that people are going to be buying and laying down carefully in their cellar for the next 30 years. But you also are getting this sort of new wave of modern carbonic maceration wine styles that are seen as being easily accessed at an early age, but also seen as being higher quality. So Steve Pennell from Adelaide, is he Adelaide Hill? No, he's McLaren Vale. He makes some Adelaide Hills wine as well. He made a Shiraz using this sort of technique a few years back and won the Jimmy Watson trophy at the Melbourne Wine Show with it, which is unheard of, because usually it's things like Wolf Blass Platinum label that used to win, and Grange Hermitage, and things that have that you taste and you kind of go, whoa, this wine will be great in 30 years time, and it's got so much fruit and so much oak and so much this. Whereas this wine is just drink and enjoy and have it with friends and have it with delicious food. And it's not, as I said right at the beginning, it's not going to fall over in 6 months, but you don't want to buy it and put it down and forget about it for 10 years, because right now it's delicious. Hello, Nina. I've been yabbering on, and I did see that you say hello. Lovely to see you. I wonder if Peter made it home yet. He did try and leave in time to get home to drink Shiraz with you. Kate, I'm glad that's interesting. I mean, I think that, it's people don't talk a lot about winemaking techniques and what we do to kind of make wine more accessible. Or that's true. That's actually true. Michael Grange never won the Jimmy. It was never submitted. They didn't have to. But a lot of those famous wines, I think some of the Yalumba, Yalumba Octavius, those sort of wines used to be show-winning wines. And they're wines that when they're young, they're very impenetrable. There's so much concentration of dark fruit and oak and alcohol and tannin. They're just really challenging. The top Wynns wines are the same. The Wynns Michael, and there's another one that also is expensive and fancy and is always better with about 20 or 30 years of age on it. Those are the ones that used to win wine shows, and these days, partly because consumer tastes are changing, and the judges realise that they have to reflect that. But John Riddick, thank you, Michael. That's right. I used to sell a lot of that when I worked in retail. What was I saying? Oh, yes, wine judges have changed as well. So it used to be a lot of older winemakers who were the wine judges, and they were looking for, the really kind of monumental, serious kind of long-term wines that kind of rip the enamel off your teeth when they're young. And these days there are a lot more sommeliers who are wine judges, a lot of younger people who are wine judges who are looking for wines that are a little bit more approachable as young wines. Again, because people aren't cellaring wine, and restaurants can't afford to buy wine to cellar either. So unless wineries sell a wine for them, and that's an expensive task for us to do, then you really don't get to taste wines that have the potential to age but also drink well when they're young. Yes, Jack and Zach, baseball bat Shiraz, yeah. I think I've missed, what have I missed? Green wine, Michael. Do you mean green as in environmentally friendly, or green as in the colour of green? I'm not sure if I understand that comment question. Young, yes, absolutely. So these wines that are made to drink young will probably age well for maybe 4 or 5 years. It's the answer to your question, Alison. I think it was Alison who asked how long this wine would age. Yeah, Mark Shields. Well, Mark Shields was quite a truth teller of a wine writer. He was the person who, after people were winning lots and lots of awards for underripe shaded Cabernet in the, I think it was the late 80s, early 90s, and he turned around and said, "Oh, hey guys, these wines are just not ripe. They're not very nice," which was probably one of the reasons that eventually we stopped making Cabernet here, because cool climate Cabernet is hard work. But just to reference this back to other sort of more classic carbonic maceration style red wines, Beaujolais, as I said before, is kind of a real classic style. Exactly, Michael. Mark was amazing. He did die from too much wine. He was colloquially known as empty bucket, because he never used his spittoon, which is not a good thing to do when you're a wine writer and a wine judge. Better to just be selective about what you swallow, I think, when you have that much wine around you. What was I about to say? Oh, yes, as well as Beaujolais, which I think some Beaujolais is really beautiful. And also, when we were talking about Beaujolais, I think it was my wine course the other week, actually, when I was teaching. Somebody asked me, and somebody asked me if all Beaujolais was like the Beaujolais Village that we had, and if it's all made using carbonic maceration. And there's some really serious Beaujolais that are made using very classic winemaking techniques that age really well and look completely different. So if you get a chance to look at some cru Beaujolais from some serious producers, particularly from regions like Morgon, Moulin-à-Vent, Fleury, those are all pretty amazing regions, and you get to taste Gamay as a serious wine rather than just sort of something that's easy drinking, early drinking. There are a lot of Italian wines being made, entry level. Oh, Ryan, that sounds delicious. I don't know that wine, but I shall check it out. Yeah, well, I think Morgon is a fabulous vineyard, but good carbonic maceration wine is delicious. And that's what I'm saying. It's not just here, let's do carbonic maceration because we can't be bothered to make the wine properly. It's quite a lot of work. And if you start out with really good fruit and make really good wine from it, then it can be absolutely delicious. Yes, Alison, I think that's right. So yeah, the story of Grange, the guy who invented it, Max Schubert, actually made it secretly for 3 years and then showed it to his bosses, and they tasted it and went, "That's awful. You're not allowed to make that anymore." So he hid it at the back of the cellar and kept making it. And 5 years later, he actually brought it out again, and people went, "Oh wow, cool." Talk of spilling wine on my computer. Oh no, Michael, I'm so sorry. Yes, it's a very good idea when you're tasting with a computer nearby. And I tell this to all of my students, because a lot of Master of Wine students are now doing all their exams on computer. And I couldn't think of anything worse. I think handwriting is hard work, but at least if you spill your wine on your bit of paper, then you can mop it up and keep going. Whereas if you spill it on your computer, everything's all a disaster. But I think having the computer elevated helps, and having the wine down on the table is really good. But yes, I'm so sorry that you that you spilt some wine on your computer, Michael. I have done that in the past. No help to you now, but an insider tip is if you turn it upside down immediately to get as much wine or liquid or whatever out, and then hit it with the hairdryer. Because if you can dry it out quickly, then sometimes it won't damage the computer's innards. But hopefully you had a backup, and hopefully things weren't too disastrous. Shell, I think that's a really good point, that this wine, when you re-pour it, it tastes completely different. And it's got that sort of almost sherbety, kind of raspberry sherbety kind of character to it, which I think is really cool. It also reminds me, when we're talking about lolly shops, there's something about it that reminds me of, this is lockdown confession, however many I've given you in the last little while, but lockdown confession number 554 from Kate is that one of the things I got sucked into in the last lockdown was buying fancy chocolate online. And of course, my Facebook locked into the fact that I was buying chocolate, and so then, of course, sent me lots of advertisements about chocolate. And there's a company in Queensland called something that do, those red jelly frogs? Some of you will go, yes. Some of you will go, I don't know what you're talking about. They're Allen's lollies, red jelly frogs, and they cover them in chocolate. They cover them in milk chocolate, or they cover them in sort of a caramelly white chocolate. They're pretty good. This wine smells a little bit like that as well. The milk chocolate ones, not the caramelly ones. Sorry, Michael. I'm glad you were backed up, but yes, probably too late for the hairdryer solution. But there's that raspberry lolly and a bit of a little bit of a milk chocolatey kind of character coming through as well. But then you put it in your mouth and it's got that lovely crunchy acidity as well. So really fun. Guys, I think I've run out of things to say. Has anyone got any more questions? I think I'm probably done for tonight. Before we go, Magic Stalk Shiraz, it's pretty good. Thanks, Shell. I've got to say, oh my God, the marketing. I can't wait to show you what Pete's come up with the Drinks with Kate merch. My lips are sealed. So my secret, my bit of news. So we're coming to the end of this box of wine. Oh, Kate, we did talk a little bit about how the wine changes in the glass, but not a lot. I'm sorry. I'll do that better next time, I promise. This wine probably didn't change as much in the glass as some wines do. So next time we're going to have the 2012 McIntyre Chardonnay. It's the McIntyre, not the Robinson, isn't it, Jeff? I think it's 2012. So a bit of age on it. A wine that I adore. You're going to want to cool that down, but not have it too cold. So get it in that sort of 14-degree kind of place, whether that means taking it out of the fridge half an hour before you drink it or whatever you need to do. So you want it cool but not too cold. I will give you some nice food matches, but we'll focus in really closely on that wine and do a really kind of, in-depth tasting next week. Will be nice and geeky. And then we're going to have a little that's all right, Kate. I didn't really talk about it too much. It was I'm looking forward to seeing you guys at Celador. So anyone who has to go, please feel free to go. McIntyre 2012 Chardonnay, so delicious, very excited. And then we're going to have a week's break and we're going to do a cocktail. And if you would like to give me some feedback, I'm vacillating between two cocktails. One is the old-fashioned, which I think is a great cocktail for winter, but it's it's whiskey or bourbon based, so it's it's quite strong, but a good one. I can give you some options on how to make it a little bit less strong if you don't like a really super strong cocktail. The other one is the daiquiri, and we can look at the and that's rum based, so we can look at a classic daiquiri and an Ernest Hemingway daiquiri. So if I don't hear votes from you guys, if you want to email me, please do. If you've got something else that you'd like me to taste. Oh, actually, sorry, I take that back. the week after next, we're going to do. The week after next, we're going to do. We're actually going to do a couple of champagnes, and I'll send you the details because the CRVC and Champagne Bureau in Sydney is helping us out with looking at a couple of champagnes, and at least one of them is very easily gettable if you guys want to get one to drink along with. So some information on that. We'll do a cocktail the following week, so it's 2 weeks without any Moorooduc Estate wine. And Ryan, yes, if you email me, which either me@moorooducestate.com.au or kate@moorooducestate.com.au tonight with your phone number, et cetera, we will we'll give you a call in the morning and get that sorted for you, and with your address and stuff. Or you can just buy the mixed 6-pack for Drinks with Kate on the website, whatever you prefer. We can sort you out. Easy peasy. Yeah, I've heard that, Karen. So champagne. So next week, 2012 Chardonnay. The following week, champagne. The week after that, a cocktail. And then we're going to start box 4 for the year. And I am inviting a guest wine onto box 4, and it's going to be an imported wine. And I hope you enjoy it. So I'm not going to tell you any more at the moment, but it will be fun. It's a wine that I love, that I'm very passionate about, and I'll really enjoy talking to you about it. Yes, Michael, we will definitely have a look at maybe some 2017 Chardonnays from other places as well. I think the feedback I've had so far has been mostly Moorooduc Estate wines with 1 or 2 guest wines. So again, if you want to email me about whether you'd like to see an imported wine, which I've already committed to the imported wine, so you're getting that, sorry. But if you'd like to see a Chardonnay from somewhere else in Australia as well as part of that box of 6 that's coming up, we can do that, or we can do that following this next box of 6. We've got a couple of pre-release single vineyard Chardonnays for you guys to taste along with me in that next box. So I think that'll be really exciting. Have a lovely evening, guys. Beck. A good daiquiri is nothing like a Maduri Illusion shaker, but taking that on board, we'll work it out. I'll probably do one this time and the other one later on in the year, so you'll probably get to visit both cocktails. Have a lovely, magical evening, guys. Enjoy your lamb, your pizza, your wine, your company, and I will see you all again next week. Cheers. Oh, have fun, Michael. Enjoy your walk.